This week on Uncut Gems with Slim, I'm not going to prejudge the challenges that happen based on my past. So sometimes you can misjudge a change thinking that history is about to repeat itself when really it's on you to learn the lesson that the Lord is trying to teach you. New week, new gems, and we are back with another episode of Uncut Gems with Slim. I'm your host, Jasmine, commonly known as Slim Reshae on all social media platforms. So last week, we talked about organized chaos and how to deal with the unpredictable things that happen in life, right? And so I left you guys with a challenge of the week to think about how you react to change, how you respond to change. And so I want to share with you guys an example that kind of happened to me that made me be aware of my reaction. I was serving on a team at my church, and it was in a position that I'm not the most confident in, but I was, excited, leaning in and trying to do a great job, right? So at the end of the first service, I got a compliment and it was like, oh, you did really good, really good. So I'm like, oh my God, yes. I'm feeling reassured about doing something that I wasn't necessarily confident in. And so I felt good about that. Everybody feels good when they're encouraged or they're complimented about something that they do. Shortly after, I was given some constructive criticism on how to be better at what I basically was just complimented on. So in that moment, I was like, dang, I kind of felt a little discouraged, that criticism kind of discounted the compliment that I just got. And at first I was like, man, see, when somebody come correct you, be like, well, why don't you go ahead and do it then? Don't be telling me what to do. You do it. Since you got everything and the opinion on it, you do it. And so initially, I wanted to be like, okay, well then you come and do it then. That was my initial reaction internally. And as soon as that had happened, I was like, girl, you just told the people to, be aware of their reactions to change, the unpredictable. And so one thing I have to get better at is learning how to respond, not only respond, but learning how to digest constructive criticism. So it's easy to tell people how to change things or, oh, that looked bad, and share your opinion. But to be able to digest criticism, it's another level of maturity, another level of listening, and actually being able to take what they're saying and apply it where it needs to be applied. After they gave me the constructive criticism, for a few seconds, I was taken aback, baby, you just said I did good. Now you telling me I need to change something. And then when I went into it, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little discouraged. I was. But I was like, you know what? Let me get back to the challenge of the week. Let me be aware that that was my immediate reaction. And then I was able to try and change the way that I responded to it. So instead of outwardly feeling defeated and not considering what they told me, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to do what they say. It's gonna require me to pay a little bit more attention. It's gonna require me to think a little bit harder. Yeah, it challenged me to do the correction that was given. But at the same time, I don't want you to feel just because you do something good and someone still comes in with criticism that it discounts what you already did. And I say that because we all need somebody in our life that's going to keep it real. Whether it's a friend, a family, your mama, or Jesus. We need somebody that's going to keep it real, even when you're doing good. Or that's going to give you intentional feedback, even when you're doing good. And I want to challenge you this week to take criticism and digest it well. Don't just, chew off the meat, spit out the bones. Don't take everything to heart, but also don't let it go in one ear and out the other, because sometimes that criticism is what's going to take you to the next level. In every level in life, you're always going to have criticism regardless. People got opinions, they gonna share them, but being able to digest constructive criticism well and use it to your advantage is gonna take you to higher levels. So that's the way that I kind of participated in the challenge that I gave you guys last week. So speaking of challenges, most challenges come when things change. And I know we've been talking about change a lot. So Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "For everything there's a season and a time, and for every matter under heaven." When I read this verse, I'm just reminded that there's a season for everything and that change is gonna happen, because it says there's a season and a time for every matter. So one, that means seasons are coming. There's a time for everything. So that means with time and with seasons, stuff gonna change. When challenges arise, I feel like you're required to adapt to something that you don't have control over. So with that being said, we know that one, change is coming. So if we know that change is coming, the way we can utilize change and kind of take advantage of that curveball is to expect it. I know that sounds a little bit simple, but when change happens, you can't get stuck on what was or whether it's comfortable or not. 9 times out of 10, change be a little uncomfortable if I'm being real, but you can't harp on that. I feel like it's better if you lean into the change and kind of get excited a little bit, because we talked a little bit about how like the Lord is doing a new thing. When change happens, I feel like there's a little telltale, like, okay, something good is brewing, something is on the come up, like something is coming, you know what I'm saying? And Isaiah 43:18-19 says, "So don't remember what happened in the earlier times. Don't think about what happened a long time ago, because I am doing something new. Now you will grow like a new plant. Surely you know this is true. I will even make a road in the desert. Rivers will flow through that dry land." So, based on Isaiah, okay, what I'm getting from, I'm telling y'all what I'm getting from it, and this just face value. This ain't even digging deep. I'm not going to prejudge the change and the challenges that happen based on my past, because this verse is saying, you know, don't think about what happened a long time ago, for I'm doing something new. So sometimes you can misjudge a change or a challenge thinking that history is about to repeat itself, when really it's on you to learn the lesson that the Lord is trying to teach you. And he's doing a new thing every time. So when change and challenges arise, like, lean into it. Try and figure out, like, what is the Lord trying to teach me? Because surely there's something that I need to get out of this. And he's doing a new thing. So that means newness, greatness, all of that is going to be a result of how I react and respond to this change. Better yet, goodness and newness is going to be a result of how I adapt to the challenges, how I overcome the challenges and the change that happens. This verse just reminds me how daily he's doing a new thing, and that growth comes as a result of that change. So sometimes change be given very much ghetto, if I'm being honest. Change be like, who done it? Who? I ain't asked for you. Why are you here? But because I know he's doing a new thing, I can look at change in a different lens. Like, I can look at change like this is an opportunity for me to grow, for me to be better than I was. And change is a chance for me to elevate. When we acknowledge that change is guaranteed, it's gonna happen in life. Like, regardless, no matter what you want to say, if your name Peter, Paul, or Joe, change is gonna happen. And so if we acknowledge that change is guaranteed to happen in life, it becomes a little bit more digestible because we expect it. So instead of looking at change as something like, oh my gosh, that came out of left field, I wasn't expecting it, like, expect a little feathers to be ruffled every now and then. Because when it happens, like, you get to the point where you just be like, oh, this is cute. Let's see what she got to offer. Because I'll give y'all an example. A couple years ago, my car was having some trouble. Trouble don't last always, but in that season, my car was just like, baby girl, I'm about to throw every left, right, hook, jab I can at you. And y'all, I had got my car fixed. Come to find out, like a couple weeks later, the car stalls out. And the thing that I just paid hundreds of dollars to fix wasn't even what was broke in the first place. So then I had to get it fixed again. And I basically got my car fixed like 3 times over the course of like a month, 2 months. And this was like hundreds, over $1,000 at this point. And I'm just sick. I'm sick and tired. I'm tired and sick, y'all. But by the time, the 3rd time, 4th time, the car was acting up, y'all, all I could do was laugh. All I could do was laugh. Because at this point, I expected it. I was not expecting my car to just act right, be in its place, fall in line. I was expecting it to act up, okay? And because my perspective shifted from being blindsided and just, reacting in a way that's like, oh my gosh, like, why does this keep happening to me? Da 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 da. By the third or fourth time, I expected it. And so I was able to respond differently. Like when something happened, I remember the last time something happened to my car during that time period, I had just laughed. I was like, of course, like, sure. Like I had just laughed because it was like, okay, I done been through this a couple of times. The Lord doing a new thing. So after that fourth time, my baby girl was working smooth as a whistle. But before then, like the first time, boohoo cried. Second time, boohoo cried. Third time, I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is too much. But by the fourth time, like I said, y'all, I had just laughed. And the reason why I could laugh is because one, I had done been through this before. And none of my crying did anything to assist the situation or move the situation forward. And so by me laughing at it, I was able to one, not put myself through emotional turmoil over something that I had no control over. But two, I was also able to react more efficiently and respond in a way that brought results. Like I was just like, okay, y'all, I need to get my car fixed. Y'all figure out what's wrong. Please pay y'all, get it done and off my plate. And so I say all that to say the initial emotion that you normally would have to change. So whether that be you will cry like me, or whether you be angry, you be uncomfortable, or you worrying, you're able to dilute that feeling and those emotions, lean into the change, and then shift your focus on resolutions. And that's exactly what I did. So like I said, the last time I I called the people to fix the car. And I was like, this is what happened. Woo, woo, woo. Tell me how much it costs. Boom. Now we got a resolution. The car gonna get fixed. I'll pay the money. And then we gonna be done with the situation. Which that was way more effective than the first couple of times where I was just leaning into the emotions rather than leaning into the resolution to the change. And that leans me kind of towards the idea of worrying. And I know when you think of worry, you're like, man, I'm not a worrier. I don't be worrying it like that. Like the only time I worry is if my mama don't answer the phone when I call her. The only time I worry is when, I don't know, my money be looking funny, my change be a little strange. Like that's the only time I be worrying. But in Matthew 6:34, it says, therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And that is such good advice. One, I don't got the scripture down here, but y'all know the scripture where it be like, don't worry about nothing, pray about everything. That right there, get a tattoo. Like PT say, get a tattoo on your arm. Like, life be lifing. There's no need to be worrying. Because a lot of times worry come from our own self and our own mind and our own thoughts. Like it really don't be nothing that we actually need to worry about. Like if worry is reaction to your change, exchange that out for prayer and see how much easier adapting to change becomes. And with this scripture here, every day is gonna have its challenges. Every day is gonna have its curveballs and its wrenches thrown into plans. Them the things that you need to lean into and adapt to. This also kind of reminds me of how, tomorrow your next breath ain't even promised. So instead of worrying about the tomorrows and the next weeks and the next months, today, optimize today, enjoy today, figure it out today, start your business today. Today, this current breath is the only breath that you got, that you know for sure you got because you breathing it. You know what I'm saying? There's people in this life who are always about what's next, and they do so much thinking and they be so much in their head that they never put the pedal, the wheels, the rubber to the pavement. What the phrase is, they never put the rubber to the pavement, okay? They just be sitting in the car, just thinking about this and that and this and that. No, take action today. And so again, remember, tomorrow is not promised. So live it up today. Have joy in the things that you're doing and refrain from worrying. Because baby, worrying ain't gonna do nothing but give you a headache, make your eyes be hurting and red from crying and snotting and stuff, and you just gonna have a headache. And I know it's easier said than done, but I challenge you to exchange your worry out for prayer and see how much your life changes. So now that we talked about preparing for change and what that looks like and to expect change, the next challenge comes when we decide how to respond to the change and the timeliness in which we do it. So I'll go back to my example about what happened at church. And so I had two choices. I had to decide on how I was going to respond to the criticism that I received, and then also the timeliness in which I did it. So it's like, okay, could I have taken what he said and been like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do that next week. First of all, I had watched something, I think it was Cuffed to the Clock from Transformation Church, and this kind of don't got nothing to do with this, but I'm saying anyway. And it was saying like the audacity that we be having, that we gonna have another chance to obey. And I was like, okay, wait a minute, because we got the audacity. And so I'm saying that now because I was thinking like, okay, if I was like, oh, I took the criticism, oh, well, I'm going to do it that week. Even that, oh, I'm going to do it next week. Like, girl, not you got the audacity to like be so bold about like knowing that you're going to be here next week. Like, that's crazy. Like, you got to be living like every day is a gift. Every day is a gift to be able to breathe. You know what I'm saying? But it's just like even small stuff like that. You don't be thinking about the audacity that we be having with God. We be like, yeah, we gonna do that next week. And he be like, oh yeah, you gonna do that next week? Okay. You'll trust me that you gonna be here next week, but you won't trust me that I'm gonna pay them bills on time. You'll trust me that you're gonna be here next week, but you won't trust me that I'm forming and fashioning your husband just the way that you gonna like it. You trust me that you're gonna be here next week, but you not trusting that I'm gonna do what I said I'm gonna do. Like, the audacity is crazy. Anyway, so timeliness and how to respond. So with that situation, I had to decide how I was going to respond to the constructive criticism. And like I said, at first, my response was, well, you do it. Since you wanted a certain way, you do it.
Since you got your degree and you know everything.
That was my immediate internal response. And then once I caught myself and hit me with the WWJD, what would Jesus do? I was just like, okay, let me try to do, what they was critiquing me on. And then again, the timeliness. So I had to decide in that moment, like, okay, let's get ready for second service. Let me do these changes versus being stubborn or being like, well, I'm not going to do that or I'm going to do that next time. Like, whatever. I wanted to share with you guys different questions you can ask yourself when you're faced with challenges or have different decisions that you're trying to figure out how to respond to them. I would say ask yourself, is your decision in alignment with what God said? And does it align with your values? And then again, just ask yourself, what would Jesus do? That little WWJD get me in line every time. Like, if I need to be checked, that thing gonna do it every time. Because anytime I want to react negatively in like a situation or a scenario, I be like, okay, what would Jesus do? Yeah, Jesus would not be popping off. He sure wouldn't in the way that I want to pop off. So I need to tuck that back in and respond more like him. And then I will also say you have to evaluate the results that are going to come from your decision. Is the effects of your decision going to impact people in a positive way or a negative way? Is it going to hurt people or is it going to help people? That can help you navigate whether or not you're on the right path of what you should do when you're making a decision. And then lastly, I would say be sure about the decision you're making. Like, nothing irks the bones up under this skin than someone who is like unsure. Like, nobody that I know of really like indecisiveness. If you're making a decision, be sure about that thing, even if it might be wrong. Because, you know, the Lord gonna work it out anyway, and you gonna get to where you need to be. But be sure and be confident in your decision. In a way to be sure and confident in your decision is by asking yourself those other questions to see if they align with what the Lord said, if they align with your values, and if they align with what would Jesus do. 9 times out of 10, if you can find the answer to them questions about your decision, and the answer is yes, but this is what Jesus would do, this is what the Lord said, you know, this is in line with my values, then it's probably gonna lean you towards the right decision. And then lastly, how you respond to change also refers to your tone and your demeanor. Now, I know y'all might want to tussle when it comes to that, but you can have a good response to something and deliver it poorly. And the way you deliver it can like totally misconstrue the whole point of you saying what you had to say in the first place. When you deliver a message, it doesn't hurt to follow up to ensure that the person understands what you're trying to say. Because a lot of times you can say something and mean it in one way, like your intention is a certain thing, but the way that they receive it can be different than what you intended. So it doesn't hurt when you're, you know, responding to change, or when you're responding to a situation, or, you know, whatever. It doesn't hurt to follow up that delivery with confirming that the person understands. And there's a way to do that without sounding condescending. You could just be like, hey, I just want to make sure you picking up what I'm putting down. Like, I know I'm saying XYZ, but I really think this is gonna help you in this area. I'm not trying to discount what you've already done. And I think that's a big thing. Like I was saying earlier, like, just because someone gave me constructive criticism, it didn't discount the good that I did the first go round. Like, we gotta stop thinking, when I say we, I really mean me. I need to learn how to better digest criticism. I don't think I do a terrible job, but sometimes when it's like things that I'm not confident in or other things like that, it can feel discouraging when someone like comes to you. Some of the stuff I be reading in the Bible be like, you know, don't be scared of reproof, which reproof, I'm pretty sure I mean is like not reprimand, but Lord, y'all, I don't got my Bible notes, but basically don't be afraid of correction. Like, you need to love correction if you want to gain wisdom and things like that. So like, I know a lot of times our initial reaction to correction can be bitter, discouraging, anger, like whatever, discomfort. But if we kind of try and lean into it, like I was saying, this whole episode, we leaning into the change, we leaning into the constructive criticism. Now, obviously, you ain't got to take what everybody say, because everybody ain't for you, and, you know, everything everybody say ain't to be considered. But we're talking about constructive criticism, those kind of things. Like, lean into it. Lean into growing, because that change is going to lead to growth. So I hope y'all enjoyed this week's episode. Make sure you connect with us on Instagram at Uncut Gems with Slim. And until next week. Uncut Gems, Uncut Gems.